HP, test more, test faster, test continuously with HP Unified Functional Testing version 12.02. Next slide, please. Next. Thank you. Today's session is hosted by myself, Christopher J. Scher. I'm Vivit Director, currently the Treasurer, also Vivit Iowa Nebraska Chapter Co-Leader and TQA SIG Leader. Next slide, please. Today's speakers are Clinton Sprove, Senior Product Marketing Manager for HP Functional Testing, and Amir Bennett, Senior Product Manager, Unified Functional Testing. Next slide, please. Just a little housekeeping. This is a live session and it's being recorded. Recordings are available to all Vivit members. We'll be taking questions and answers at the end of the session, so please type your questions in the questions pane. Next slide, please. And there's a slide of the webinar control panel to show you where to type your questions and how to toggle between the screen modes. Next slide, please. And now I'll hand this off to Clinton. So Clinton, take it away.
All right, thank you, Chris. Well, thank you everyone for attending this webinar. Amir and I are really excited to present to you some of the new functionality that's come out in version 12.02 of Unified Functional Testing. So what I'd like to do first is just kind of give you really kind of an overview of kind of a state of the union of functional testing today and how we are addressing that with the latest version of UFT and kind of give you a glimpse of where we're taking the product forward. So with that, let's look at the evolution of functional testing. Now, I'm sure that everyone that's on this call is experiencing something in one of these three areas within their company. And what we've noticed, of course, at HP, especially with functional testing, it's really been a challenge, especially for those that are doing traditional test automation using our solutions. So many companies and many teams are now going from Agile and they're implementing DevOps, and they have challenges within these testing processes because now you're looking at tests that are more component-based, many more frequent changes, and also you have new personas, that dev test persona. So you have more of a developer type that's actually contributing to the testing rather than what we used to have, which was a traditional test automation engineer. So the personas are sort of morphing and evolving. And also what we're seeing is the advancement, of course, of open source and freemium tools. And in most shops, in most organizations that we're seeing is with Agile and especially DevOps, they prefer open source tools. So they're looking for something that has the flexibility. How can I integrate this within our continuous testing, continuous build and automation processes? And also for them, a lot of the bells and whistles that a majority of us produce, they're looking for really just good enough test automation. So in other words, what can I do to actually do my job? Then you have companies that are starting to get into other areas. So as the advent of mobile and mobile development is really changing how companies are releasing their applications, as well as the Internet of Things. These things are actually changing the definition of quality because mobile is everywhere, and now you have to test different types of devices and how they work simultaneously across these different applications. So what you see here in this particular slide is known as the World Quality Report. And this is a report that HP and Capgemini and Sageti created to get a pulse of what's actually happening in the industry from a quality perspective. And I won't go through each of the items on this particular infographic, but one of the key areas that really stood out was the increase in terms of functional testing, especially when it comes to security. So of the 1,500 individuals that we surveyed, 54% believed that functional testing was where they wanted to focus their area, was going to be their primary focus area, especially when it comes to mobile testing. So as we're seeing with the evolution of functional testing and the way that teams have to do different things, this is really starting to really change and challenge QA organizations in terms of how they're able to do what they need to do from a testing perspective. So real quick, let's look at the traditional test automation, or what I call the old approach. Now, if you notice at the bottom of the pyramid, it's really heavy with user interface testing, which is where tools like UFT and formerly QTP, where we focus heavily with our user base, testing that UI, testing that front-end experience. And you'll also see that from an API and services testing is done less from a traditional standpoint. And then, of course, unit testing is typically around 10% in your traditional waterfall environment. Now, what we're seeing, of course, with test automation and Agile and DevOps is actually flipped, where majority of your testing is done at the unit testing level, and then more of your testing is also done at the service and middle tiers. So those two tiers take up a vast majority of the testing process. The reason this is done is so that we can bring testing more to the forefront, or you may have heard the term of shift left. Test early, test often, and test more. So a majority of the defects that are typically found when testing are found within the service layer or at the unit level. So the more testing we can do up front, that's going to help alleviate those defects that are actually pushed into production. So with that, we're introducing UFT, Unified Functional Testing 12.02. And our focus for this and going forward is continuous testing for Agile, DevOps, and mobile development environments. And of course, as you know, with UFT, it's a single unified interface that allows you to run different types of tests from UI to API and be able to combine them for a full regression test suite. In addition to that, mobile application testing as well as cross-browser testing and continuous delivery. So with that, what I want to do is talk about some of the key areas that we've actually improved within the product, and then I will pass over to my colleague who will actually show you a demo of some of these new features. And of course, with UFT, we have really the complete solution for functional testing and the areas that we integrate with. Of course, with HP Mobile Center, and then business process testing, which is our framework. And we have different accelerators, of course, different frameworks, of course, for SAP testing, as well as Oracle and other packaged apps. And then Sprinter for manual testing and service and network virtualization to really help expedite the testing for API and web services testing. So one of the key areas that we've enhanced is our integration with our new offering, which is known as HP Mobile Center. HP Mobile Center was released, I believe, in October of 2014. This is a solution that we created direct within the HP R&D, and we're using this to actually leverage your existing investments in ALM within our solution. And UFT is an integral part of that from an automation standpoint, being able to take that existing skill set and utilizing that for automation for mobile device testing. It also has flexible device management and allows you to create your test under real-world conditions. So, for example, you could create a test that's actually testing a mobile application, but we can interject things such as our network virtualization, where we can actually simulate what the network conditions are even through a functional test. And we do this using real devices and real network type conditions. Another key area that we've improved with UFT 12.02 is we've added full Chrome support, which means now you can record and play back your test on the Chrome browser. We also support Chrome 32 and 64-bit. And another key item that what we've done is the challenge that most of our customer base has felt is how do we keep up with the latest and greatest releases of Chrome and that browser? Well, what we've done is we've actually put the functional testing agent within the Chrome store so that not only are we able to keep up with the latest and greatest changes with Chrome, you'll be able to receive those as soon as there are major changes. So in other words, you don't have to wait several months for the next release in order to get that Chrome update. We'll be able to update that strictly through the functional testing agent, which is located in the Chrome web store. We've also added web extensibility support for the various technologies that you see on your your screen, such as the Dojo Toolkit, the Siebel OpenUI, jQuery, and of course the different Google Web Toolkits. So we've done some vast improvements in making sure that you're going to get that best testing experience across the board for Chrome 32 and 64-bit. Now we've also added the ability to version your test using subversion, or SVN for short. So now you can work directly from UFT with subversion as your asset repository, which means you can now commit your changes directly to your source control system and be able to resolve those conflicts and be able to run a diff comparison. Now this is huge for some of those that are not necessarily testing directly with ALM. Maybe you're using UFT in a separate environment, or you'd like to use it with Jenkins as well. So we've also enhanced our integration with Jenkins. So now you can actually pass Jenkins environment parameters with the UFT test. So now you have a lot more flexibility for your continuous testing and continuous delivery mechanisms to do that early regression testing and early smoke tests using these particular items. With that, I'm going to pass it on to my colleague Amir Bennett, who's going to give you an interactive demo of UFT 12.02. Amir?
Yes, thank you, Clinton, for this introduction. Let me know if you can see my screen. 1 second, please. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Great. So what I'm going to show you is basically two things that Clinton has mentioned. One of them is around the cross-browsing and the abilities, the new abilities that we added for Chrome. And the second thing is just about how we can easily ramp up the mobile testing also as part of UFT. So let's start with the Chrome. As you can see here in the record and run settings, now you have also the ability to record on Google Chrome, as you can see right here. And this is what we are actually going to do. So let's start recording. This is, I guess you are familiar with that, the demo online banking application that we also provide. So let's enter a username and password, log into the application, select a money transfer, select a specific date. Now, as you can see here, we have the ability to use the regular checkpoint, and also the recognition is being done through the regular hierarchy and the level of intimacy that you're familiar with from IE, meaning it is not just a web element, but we are recognize the elements according to what they are. So in this case, it is a web table when we are trying to have a checkpoint, or when we are recognizing this object and putting it as part of our object repository. So here is the table that we got. And this is basically the script that was generated. Now let's add one message box and save the test. Now, what I would like to do is basically to replay the script that we created, but this time let's use a different browser, in this case Safari, and we will use it on a remote Mac machine. So we need to enter the IP for that machine and basically execute the test. Of course, it is running through a VNC, okay, because still UFT is a Windows-based solution, so a VNC is needed in order to execute this test remotely. And as you can see here on the left, the screen side, we have the VNC, and the very short test that we created has been completed. Now in UFT, of course, we can see the report afterwards, and also a nice thing is once we are trying to have a spy, we are able also to do the spy directly on the remote Mac machine. As you can see right here, you have identification that the spy is being used right now. And we have, again, the same level of capabilities that you are familiar with from the spy in other browsers that are on your own machine. Now, what I would like to do now is to show you a little bit regarding the subversion integration that we have. So the first thing that you will notice is the ability, once you're standing on a solution or on a test, to commit the test to subversion. And this is exactly what we're going to do now. So we are saving this version to subversion. And let's delete some of the things from the test. Okay, so let's delete row number 5, and let's change the username. Instead of a Jojo, let's do a parameter instead, and enter here, instead of Jojo, invalid name, and change also the message box. Now, why I did it is only to show you this comparison between the two versions and how it looks like. So you can see that now you have the compare between previous versions. And you can see here inside UFT this comparison. So you can see highlighted in gray the line where we actually notice a change. We can double click on it and get the actual code that was changed between one version to the other. So now let's replay it, this time on Chrome, and let's see what happens. So because I didn't enter a valid username, I'm getting automatically to the message box with the revision 2. Now, with the subversion integration, it is very, very easy for me to go back and to revert to my old version that was stored in subversion, and to save me a lot of time by that, and also a lot of efforts if I've done something incorrectly. So now by pressing one button, I'm basically getting again the old version of my script. So that's regarding the subversion integration. And that's complete our first demo. Let me close this and open the second demo, and that's regarding Mobile Center. Yes. So here I'm basically going only to show you the ramp up, the easy ramp up of Mobile Center as part of UFT. So you should come from the assumption that Mobile Center is already installed. This is a very simple installation on the server side, where you also need to hook the different devices into the USB hub that you need to purge for that. But once it is completed, you see that in UFT, in the regular add-in selection, another add-in was added here, which is the mobile. It is automatically recognized once it is installed, and as you can see, it is already fully licensed. So let's pick the mobile and start the UFT recording. So here in the recording settings, you will see that we added additional tab called mobile, and you have here a few other capabilities. One of them, for example, is to select the application, the native mobile application that you want to run against. So here are the applications that are already selected in the past. They are stored in my database, but I can always add more applications either directly from the devices that are connected to the hub, or by going to the actual iPhone store and selecting the application, which you can later on deploy on your remote devices. So let's take the Advanced Online application, save and continue. The second thing is going to be the selection of the device. But before that, I want you to also to see the mobile vitals, which I don't have it in the demonstration, which is a very interesting and important thing as part of your testing, to see what are the vitals from your machine. For example, CPU, memory, etc. So if something goes wrong, you can also look at what were the vitals in this specific time to understand whether this might be the root cause of the problem. So in the devices, in this case, I only have one machine connected to my hub. So I will select it. Of course, you can have many devices connected simultaneously. It all depends on how many licenses you have. So let's select this device. and start the recording. What you see here is basically the screen on your computer as part of your recording, which is exactly identical to what is happening simultaneously on your remote device. You are able basically to press the button either on your laptop or computer once you're doing the testing, and the same thing will happen on the remote device. Or you can go, if you are near the lab, you can go to the remote device and do these activities directly on the machine. So there is no cameras or anything like that. It's basically the same UI that is being copied to your screen. So let's enter the username and password, the login. And that's the account overview. Let's press OK. Do the transfer of some funds from the account. And stop the recording. So as you can see here, we have a similar code as you are familiar with the regular UFT. We have the ability to press different methods or functions on the code, and of course to use the same level of object recognition that you are familiar with the regular add-ins of UFT. So here I'm going to basically change one of the values that I've added from 10 to 20, and just to run the test again. So again, this is running on the real device that is part of your lab. This is why it takes a little bit of time, because it is against the real machine or the real UI of the machine. Actually giving you a good understanding of what will be the end user experience also as part of it. So, and what you can see, I'm sorry, I moved back for a second. So in the end, basically what you will see is the regular UFT report that allows you the same level of let's say understanding of what happened and what were the steps as part of your replay on this remote device. So that's it regarding the demonstration. We will be open now for questions, but before that, Clinton, I think you wanted to also to show something.
Sure. Just to summarize what we've talked about within this presentation. So with version 12.02 with UFT, we've really expanded how we're really getting into Agile and DevOps and working with elements outside of ALM, allowing you to work with continuous testing, continuous delivery, being able to test your web services and API test together in a single interface. And of course, as Amir demoed, the mobile application testing. So our ability to increase your level of coverage for mobile application testing across iOS and Android devices. We've also showcased what's known as our cross-browser testing. So now that we've included Chrome, Firefox, IE, and of course Safari on the Mac platform, and we want to make sure that we keep up with those browser changes. So with this release, our goal is to make sure that we continue to make sure that you're able to keep up with the changes. So we're trying to make sure that we keep up with the necessary changes and enhancements to the various browser platforms and be able to get that to you as quickly as possible. And with that, we can open up the presentation for questions.
Yes, so I do see a few questions, so I will start taking a few. So the first one is about how do I utilize parameters from Jenkins in my UFT tests? That's a great question, and actually this is also something that we only recently delivered to the market. As you know, Jenkins plugin is already something that was announced and delivered around a year and a half ago. So if you are not using it, I strongly recommend you to go to the Jenkins repository and search for the HP Tools plugin. It supports not only UFT, but also LoadRunner and ALM, so a very good plugin. And we are constantly working in order to improve it. By the way, we are also, because it's an open source, we are very interested to see the community also contribute to the success of this plugin. So feel free to adjust and to improve it as you see fit and contribute back to the community. The recent changes we have done is basically exactly that. We have allowed the usage of Jenkins parameters, environment parameters, as part of the UFT script. So you are basically able to use those Jenkins parameters while you are doing the UFT execution. So it should be quite straightforward once you're using the latest plugin from Jenkins. Another question, does UFT 12.02 support Dojo objects on a Chrome browser? So yes, I guess that you missed Clinton's slide on that. Part of the thing that we have done on Chrome in order to basically bridge the gap between what we provided in IE to Chrome is allowing not only the recording but also the supportability for some of our toolkits. Okay, and one of them is Dojo. We do have, I think, 4 other toolkits that we support as part of this extensibility on Web 2.0, but Dojo for sure is one of them. Okay, let's see what other questions we have here, and we have quite a lot, so we will not, unfortunately, we will not be able to cover everything. Okay, there is a question regarding the coding language that can be used to develop the scripting within UFT. So currently we have 2 languages. We have one language that suits the GUI level or the GUI layer, what used to be the QTP area of focus, and this is still the VB script. We do have for the API tests a C#, which is the language that you can use in order to create your API testing. Of course, you don't have to use it. You can do most of the things that you need to do by just working with the actions that we have provided you. This is one of the best thing with our API testing solution is that we try to make it accessible also for non-technical users. So everything is quite easy to use through the methods, but sometimes you may want to have more elaborated or complex scenarios, or to include also code changes directly from UFT. Then the way to do it is by creating a C# code, again inside the UFT IDE. By the way, in the future, this is not a roadmap presentation, so we didn't share with you anything regarding the roadmap, but just a teaser. In the next couple of months, we will have another flavor for UFT users that will allow you to have also ability to work in the developer IDE, whether it is Eclipse or Visual Studio. And of course, once you are working there, you will be able to work with C# or with Java according to the developer environment you selected. Let's see what else. And Clinton, step in if you have a question that you want to address.
Yes, sure. Oh. So let me answer this one. Can we run the same script on desktop, iOS, and Android? And I'm going to assume that you're meaning, can we run the exact same script that you create on iOS? Can you run that across the desktop and Android? The answer for that is right off the box is no. However, it can be done programmatically. So you can basically create a script where you actually function overload to use the same the same function or method across the different platforms. So, and the reason you have to do that is because the underlying technology, of course, for Android development, especially for native object recognition as well as iOS, is different. So you'd have to account for that and also the different flows of those applications within that application. So typically you would not run a single script across all three. It can be done programmatically. So you could basically do a technique known as function overloading, where you could have a script that does a login and basically have it check the object repository to make sure, okay, am I going against iOS or am I going against Android or some other platform to be able to make that work?
Yeah, so there are a lot of questions regarding subversion, and especially regarding how it works with ALM, and that's a good point that both of us forgot to mention. Subversion is not working currently with ALM, meaning that if you do want to use what we showed you, it will be detached from ALM. Basically, you will choose subversion as your remote repository, and ALM is not able now to integrate to subversion. That's the bad news. The good news is that in the near future, both ALM and UFT are going to support Git. So basically, ALM will be able to work directly with Git, not only, by the way, for your test instances, but it will be used also for other asset repository. And the same goes for UFT. So the same level of supportability that you saw with Subversion will be enabled with Git. And once this is happening, of course, you will be able to do the full integration between UFT, ALM, or QC, and this source control. What I showed you right now on Subversion is basically limiting yourself to a different way of actually storing your test assets and running them.
So a few more Mobile Center questions that we have that have popped up. Is Mobile Center part of UFT, or are there any additional costs associated with it? So Mobile Center is actually separate, because what we've done is Mobile Center really encompasses all of your testing needs across the board, which includes integrations with not only UFT, but also our performance testing solution, as well as network virtualization. So we try to take a holistic approach when we developed Mobile Center. So UFT is Mobile Center enabled when you get it, of course. But there would be the cost of actually getting the Mobile Center part for the lab management in order to integrate that level of automation.
There is another question regarding mobile, and that whether we can also run on emulators as well. This is a good question, and actually this is part of our near-term roadmap, also to provide emulator supports. So yes, it will be possible, but currently it doesn't. Another question is, can one set of scripts be run on different browsers? So the answer is yes. As I've seen you in the demo, you are able to create one script that will be relevant and ready to be executed on the different browser. So now it's only how you prefer to execute this create one script on the browser that you have as part of your, let's call it environment validation. So it can be through the ALM, it can be through Jenkins, but you have the ability to have one script that will run on the 4 different browsers that we support, which are Chrome, IE, Firefox, and Safari.
And there was another question regarding cross-browser support, and Amir, I may need your help with this, but I believe this is correct. And the question is, does the cross-browser support work if we don't do play and record? You don't necessarily have to do record and playback in order for that to actually work. You can configure it in a way that that works for your organization, depending on the types of browsers that you're creating, or types of applications, browser-based applications that you're creating. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use the record feature in order to get the cross-browser testing capabilities. I hope that answers the question. If there's any more details, if you need to fill in and maybe give us a little bit more details on that, I'll be happy to expand upon that.
Yeah, Clinton, you're completely correct. I can tell you that I've met a lot of customers that are not using Record at all. So there are other ways to create a test from scratch through descriptive programming, through working with the object repository that you learn one page by the other. So recording is still being used, but much less than what we saw in the past.
Okay. And another question regarding cross-browser support. Is the old, quote-unquote, old code we wrote, is it still usable for cross-browser testing? Yes, because when you upgrade, the scripting language has not changed. Your scripts are still backward compatible, so whatever frameworks or functions or code that you've written will still work in UFT 12.02.
There is another question. In one of the slides we showed, we wrote Safari on the Mac platform. Does this mean that Mac operation system or just iOS? So yes, we are talking about Mac operation system, which we can actually execute the test on. We cannot record on those machines. But as we answered before regarding the cross-browser, the ability to execute at least on this Mac OS system is already available, and that's being done exactly as I showed you in the demonstration via a VNC remote window.
And we had another question regarding when can we get a timeline when UFT will support Git? Of course, we can't give you an exact timeline, but I can definitely tell you that's something that's very, very high on our radar, which is Git support. And that's actually part of, if we look at the overall ADM platform, Git is definitely high on the radar across the board.
Yeah, it's more than high in the radar. It is actually already, most of it is already complete, and it will be available in the market quite soon. Again, unfortunately, because of revenue recognition, I cannot give you the exact time frame.
Excellent.
Let's see if there is any other questions that are relevant for everyone. Just 1 second, please.
And we have one regarding Soft Labs. Can we expect in the future that Soft Labs or some other cloud execution platform will support QTP script? That is not up to us. That's actually up to them. So that is an area that we're looking into as well, is in terms of cloud-based execution that we're heavily exploring as well for our UFT and future platform support.
Yes, but as Clinton, you mentioned, we are looking and we are working on having a better cloud-based supportability. Part of it will be done via partners, and Soft Labs can be a great example of that. But part of it will also come directly from HP, from the HP shop.
And there was a question in terms of where can I find information regarding HP Mobile Center and its integration with UFT. Actually, if you go to the HP website, hp.com/go/UFT, there's also a link for Mobile Center there as well. So there's an entire page dedicated to the integration points with Mobile Center and UFT.
There is another question, this time about Flex, whether it is possible to show a UFT Flex example for an application embedded in HTML using a flash control debugger. So unfortunately, we weren't prepared for this very drilled down question on a specific technology. I do recommend you to use 12.02 also for Flex usage, because we've done quite substantial work since the release of version 12 on this specific technology. And one of them is, of course, the ability to have it completely separated from the actual Flex application, so you don't need to compile your code, your testing code, with the application anymore. It is completely separated, and it is also much more robust and much more complete, meaning it supports more objects than before. So my recommendation, go to our site, download 12.02, and just you have 30 days evaluation license. Work on it on one of your machines and see whether it is actually improving your results, no matter if it is Flex or not. But again, for Flex, for sure, you will see also a great value by moving to the latest version.
So another question that popped up is it possible to extend the Chrome add-ins by adding specific recognition over the objects? If by extensibility, you do have the ability to use like the web extensibility and the various toolkits in order to do what you need to do programmatically. I don't know if, Amir, if you have any additional info on that.
No, extensibility is the right approach here.
Okay, all right, good. And another question that popped up was about UFT, and so it says, I assume UFT 12.02 is still a client installation requiring local admin rights. Also, what is the overall footprint of the installation? This has caused our packaging team major headaches in the past. We're currently on version 11.52.
Yeah, so I think that the massive work that we have done here was already part of release 12. So we submitted a package for the web. This is the name of the package, which is much lower footprint than ever before. We are talking about reducing the package size from, I think it used to be 2.7 gigabytes. So now the package for the web is only 900 megabytes. So of course the deployment time and the installation time will be much faster. It includes everything you need. The only things that are missing here there is some let's say dependencies with other either documentation files that you have the ability to download later, and similar dependencies that most of the users don't need. So we've done a lot of work to trim this installation and to provide you exactly what you're referring to, something that will be easier to deploy, meaning time-wise and usability-wise, and also something that can be deployed without administrative right in a silent mode, so your administrator will not complain anymore about the headache that it might cause them.
And there was another question regarding getting additional information with HP UFT with subversion. Actually, you can get more information on that through the online help that will actually step you through how to configure that and work directly with SVN and UFT. And another question was, and I believe we answered this earlier, but just I guess it's worth repeating, are there other SEM tools supported in addition to SVN? Again, that's something that's definitely going to be coming down the pipe really soon, as you mentioned, with Git and GitHub in areas that we're going to explore. So we're going beyond just subversion. But currently in this release right now, it's just subversion.
There is another question regarding when will we see UFT support for the widely used XGS framework control. So 12.02 will already have, or does already have, the support for this framework control. So Anad, please try it, and if you see any problem, please log a defect on that.
And another question was regarding Java functions. Can I call functions written in Java in the future? I believe you should be able to do that now, correct?
I need further information on what exactly you're trying to do. So if you can, I don't really understand the question. So I told you about the sneak peek to the future when we will actually work in Eclipse, and there, for sure, everything will be done in Java. But if you are referring to the UFT IDE work, you cannot mix VBScript with Java. You can, of course, encapsulate all the Java code and create some sort of a COM object that can be executed from UFT, like a black box. So this is already available years already. But having the actual code open and use it as a white box as part of your scripts, which is not possible with UFT as it is today.
And another question is, will UFT 12.02 work with Perfecto Mobile, or do we need to use HP Mobile Center? UFT 12.02 is built specifically to work with HP Mobile Center primarily. So this is the solution that we are promoting going forward. So no Perfecto, just HP Mobile Center.
Okay, and I think we covered the most interesting question that we got. Anything else that I've missed, Clinton?
No, I think you've actually covered a vast majority of the ones that we wanted to make sure that everyone knew about. Again, we can have a follow-up list of the questions that we'll also get a copy of so that we can help answer these offline as well. And with that, we can pass it back to the organizers of the event.
Thank you, Clinton. Thank you, Amir. I want to take a moment to appreciate, or thank both of you and appreciate you for your time and presenting this demo. And I just want to remind everybody that this demo will be available. This session is being recorded, and this will be available as soon as we can get this uploaded. And I believe it will be uploaded to the HP site as well. Again, thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you again, Clinton and Amir.
Our pleasure. Have a good day.
You too.